The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi there, this is Todd Bugler.
And I'm Terry Elton.
And I want to thank you for being here to participate and watch this webinar from the training that we did at the ELCA Youth Gathering on Thursday, the theme of which was Finding God.
This series is brought to you by the ELCA Children, Youth, and Family Network, and we're glad you could join us.
So the Youth Gathering is an incredibly powerful experience, and we are excited that you have been a part of it and want to learn more. Our goal is to help figure out how we can carry this one step further. So the Gathering is not merely an event, but is a catalyst for greater faith formation in the lives of our young people. One of the things that makes this gathering particularly powerful for me personally is this is the first time in 11 gatherings that I've been able to be a part of that my family is here experiencing it with me as well. My wife is here as a leader in our congregational group, and both our sons, Nathan and Sam, are finally old enough to be at the gathering as well. So they're here and they're having a great experience. It makes me think a lot coming into this gathering about what my hopes for them are from this experience, what I want them to walk away from. It helps me to start thinking more about their future as well. Kind of what are my hopes for them as they continue to grow into young people of faith, young adults of faith. It also makes me look back and think about the experiences that we've shared in together that have been faith-shaping for them. It makes me think about their baptisms. Nathan, in particular, who is 17 years old and is looking at colleges now, when he was baptized 17 years ago at the font, it was a powerful experience. We knew it was going to be a powerful experience for him as a recipient of the promises of God and the love and the grace and the gifts that God brings in the waters of baptism. But here's something I didn't expect. I didn't expect in Nathan's baptism that it was going to be as powerful and profound an experience for me as a father. Now, I'd done a lot of baptisms. I taught baptismal theology. I kind of thought I understood it. But in that moment when Nathan was baptized, something happened powerful for me. I had an experience when the waters were being poured over his head and he was being baptized in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. I firmly believe that I heard God's voice speak to me. Now, I got to be honest, as a pastor, when someone walks up to me and says, I heard God's voice, God spoke to me, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up just a little bit, and I kind of get a little nervous, and I step back and I look and I say, so tell me more about that. What do you mean? The idea of God speaking to us is not a part of our normal Lutheran vocabulary. It's not like we hear God's voice speaking to us in the way that Moses heard God's voice speaking to him in the wilderness. And so it's a little unusual, and so you kind of can't help but be a little skeptical. But I'm here to tell you, on that day, at that time, I am pretty convinced that I heard God's voice speak to me. I heard God's voice say, he belongs to me. You can have him, you can tend him, you can care for him, you can take care of him, but he belongs to me. And that was a very powerful experience for me. I remember I got kind of all emotional in that moment, and I'm not an emotional person, but I got real emotional, and it just shifted the way that I thought about baptism. Even though I've been teaching this stuff and doing these things, in that moment when I experienced it as a father, I experienced it differently and I understood it differently. I looked at Nathan's baptism differently. I looked at my own baptism differently. I've looked at the baptisms of all the people that I've been a part of, their baptisms since Nathan's, differently. I realized that I'd been approaching Nathan's baptism as an event. I had a list of things to do. We had to make sure that the sandwiches were ordered for lunch afterwards. We had to make sure that someone drove great grandma to the church because she wasn't able to drive herself. We had to make sure that the aunts and uncles all knew where to be when. We had to make sure that someone got the baptismal gown that was part of our family tradition. That was probably sitting at my mom's house someplace in a basement box or something like that. All these things had to be tended to, and there was a starting point to the event and an ending point to the event. And frankly, with a to-do list like that, I was kind of looking forward to the ending point of the event and getting this all behind us. But in that moment, when I heard God say, Nathan belongs to me, I realized that God does not approach baptism as an event. For God, baptism is a catalyst. a catalyst to Nathan's ongoing receiving of the promises of God, and a catalyst to Nathan's living a life of faith following Jesus. And that's a very different perspective. God always takes the long view. Now, the ELCA Youth Gathering is an amazing event full of incredible opportunities. But there's definitely preparation that happens. There's a starting point, there's an ending point. And I think often that's how we approach it. But I believe God is calling us to look at the gathering in a different way. God is calling us to take the long view. How can the gathering be a catalyst for continued faith formation and for continued growth in a life of faith in Jesus Christ? And that's what we want to think about together, because I think the gathering provides us amazing opportunities. But in order for us to do that, we need to shift our expectations a little bit. We need to shift the way that we approach and view the gathering. And Terry is going to help us think about that.
So what if you could give the Nathans in your life, your own kids or the kids that you work with, a rudder for navigating life as they go both into what's kind of known and what we hope for, and the unknowns that we can't know as we move into the future? We actually believe you can give young people a rudder. But to do that, I think we have to look at what our understanding of a life of faith actually is. And one of the insights into how we understand that is through our expectations. Now, there are all kinds of expectations being thrown at us as people working with young people. Some of us are paid. And as the pastor, as the youth worker, or some other position in a congregation or ministry, there are certain expectations that come with that. You should show up at certain times, and there's certain responsibilities that will fall on your lap or on your job description. And there are certain expertise that you bring into the field, and that's all good. There are certain of us, like myself, that are volunteers with young people. We have expectations as well. We too have to show up, and we have a particular role in young people's lives and things that we play within the ministry. But there's also expectations that come from the kids. If we've got 3 different kids, we've got 3 different set of expectations, anywhere from, I'm here for social, I just thought it was a good trip to go to Houston, to people that have deep questions of faith and maybe even some questions of doubt. Then you add to the expectation of kids, the expectation of parents, and those can be, help, I don't know what to do, to I clearly am beyond, their questions are beyond me, and I'd like you to help them with their faith journey. You add that within a context of a congregation or a ministry, and there are expectations for that as well, positive, negative, coming from all different kinds of places. And then somewhere in the midst of all that noise and all of those mixed messages that we're getting, we have our own internal message that says, this is why I did this. This is why I give my time, or why I answered this call to ministry. And in that, we're trying to figure out how to navigate and how to help people understand a life of faith. When I step back and I look at congregations from my view as a researcher and as a teacher of the church, I see a lot of those expectations really focused on an understanding of a life of faith that happens primarily within the walls of a congregation or a building. And so with that, so often what I see is that we're looking to understand a life of faith primarily through participation in church activities, in showing up for a ministry, a youth group activity or whatever, showing up in worship, volunteering, being on the council, doing those kinds of things. And while clearly participating in a congregation is a great thing, and I would hope that that's part of a life of faith, I think that puts the life of faith in a particular box. And sometimes that box isn't extremely helpful when young people hit different questions in their lives and they don't quite know exactly how those questions fit with that box or that understanding of faith. My husband and I, we've got 2 young adult children. One's 25 and one's 22. They have grown up Lutheran. In fact, they have their box, if you will, of understanding faith has been through one particular Lutheran congregation. And while that's been really life-giving most of the time over their life, as they look forward, if that's the only way they have to navigate a life of faith, it's limited. So what if we could take those expectations and we could turn them a bit? What if we could actually give some focus that would change those expectations? I want to shift from something that I think we do maybe out of habit and maybe was helpful at one time, where we focused on numbers. How many people are here and how many people are in our congregation and who's participating and who's not and what are our budgets? Two, what if the way that we got after this was to actually wonder what is happening in the world that these young people are living in, and how does faith actually touch into that world? In other words, what if we could look through the box, through the programming, through the church, into what does faith look like in everyday life? And it's not that the box isn't important, but the box or the way that we do ministry is not the end. The program, the ministries that we do, is actually a vehicle for talking about those things in everyday life. I think we do that by two things. The way that we focus on that is two things. First is, if we want to know what's happening in everyday life of young people, guess what? I think we have to ask. And rather than first throwing Jesus at them or throwing the Bible or throwing what the church believes, which I think we often is our starting point, what do we want to teach young people, or what practices of the faith that we think are important do we want to throw at them? We start by deeply listening. We ask them questions. We get into their lives. We follow them and into their worlds. And we let their questions and their concerns and the things that they wonder about be the starting point of our conversations of faith. I don't know about you, but their world is so different than mine. Sure, there are certain things that still happen at 13 that were like when I was, but the digital age, the globalization, all kinds of things have made this world a very different place. So the first place we start is we listen to where young people are and actually go into those worlds and take those seriously. And I think those questions, those concerns are about faith. They are about God and they are about scripture. And so we can bring those in as we accompany them in that conversation. The great news for that is it takes us out of the answer giving role to the accompaniment role. I don't know about you, but a lot of the questions when I was leading a small group for our youngest in high school, I was really glad I had a PhD, and there was all kinds of times when those questions were bigger than what I could handle. The good news is we don't have to answer their complex questions in 45 minutes or the short times that we're together. The other side of this is, in addition to just taking questions seriously, programs come and go, but something that has been with Christians for over 2,000 years are faith practices. And faith practices is something that we at the ELCA network, and especially in a group of us that are working on the practice discipleship initiative, have looked at these 7. And there are other ways you can name those, but okay. But let me give you the 7 that are part of the Practice Discipleship Initiative. Worship, study, invite, pray, encourage, serve, and give. Now, what if the things that we did in the box and the programs and the life of the congregation were about lifting up these faith practices? The things about faith practices is that, yep, we can put them in packages around programs and ways of worship and things that we do as a congregation. But if we also tease them apart and we let young people know that learn how to pray or learn how to worship on their own, that transcends a particular congregation or a particular location. So my 2 children, both dating, now one's married, to a Roman Catholic. The Roman Catholic box and the Lutheran box don't look the same. And if it's the 2 boxes talking to each other, they don't talk together very well. And in fact, there's a reason we're Protestant. We have often defined ourselves over and against other people. And yet when it comes to faith practices, my daughters can talk with, and we can create a conversation between these 2 different expressions of church. It's been really fun to watch that conversation unfold over the last 4 or 5 years. In fact, our oldest just got married to this Roman Catholic and became Roman Catholic. In that conversation, they were able to use faith practices and found that their faith practices, what was underneath those packages or through those packages, was really in sync together. And my daughter, a year and a half ago, became Roman Catholic as she was confirmed. And there we sat, a bunch of us Lutherans that couldn't go up to have communion, which was a little bittersweet, but also sitting in the midst of next to her fiance who has a vibrant faith, to celebrate my daughter who has a vibrant faith, and to have these two families come alongside them in a way that was helpful and fruitful. That was really a great time to be able to see how that came to be. So now we're going to have Todd bring this home a little bit and tell what does this mean for a congregation?
Yeah, we need to think about how how this translates into the daily life of a congregation from day to day, week to week, month to month, and all that kind of stuff. And I just lost the PowerPoint here, but we're going to bring that right back. For congregations, looking at the gathering, we need to think of it in terms of a cycle. We need to think about how we live this on a daily basis. So I think it's a lot like breathing. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm actually going to have you do this. We're going to take a second, and we are going to breathe. Just take a moment and breathe in, and then breathe out. Breathe in, and then breathe out. As we do this, we are reminded that our life is cyclical. We breathe in and we breathe out. It's an automatic response for our bodies. We just do this together. We have no control over that. It just happens. I think our congregations also have the same kind of an autonomic nervous system. We gather and we go. We gather and we go. This is part of our cycle. We gather together and we go out into the world to serve, gathering and scattering. Now, there are still 168 hours in the week. On any given week, if I get my young people in the congregation for 2 of those hours, we're doing really pretty well. If I get them there for worship and maybe for youth group or confirmation or something like that, those 2 things is great. Now, I've got some young people who are there much more often than that, but I've got a lot of young people who are there 2 hours or less. And we put all of our energy into those 2 hours. One of the things I wonder is if we were able to divide our energy a little bit and still pay attention to those 2 hours. Those are really important. I don't want to diminish that, but also figure out how we can put as much energy into helping our young people live the other 166 hours when they aren't in the congregational building, helping them equip their lives to be able to navigate the kind of the difficult and turbulent waters that are part of their life. That would be an incredible gift, I think. And I'm not sure what's going on with our PowerPoint here, but we're just going to keep on plugging away. We're on a roll. So I think that's an essential thing for us to do, is to help these young people figure out how to navigate these things. If we're able to do that, we can take the faith practices that we have spent time talking about today, and we can turn them, these 7 things: worship, study, invite, prayer, encourage, serve, and give, from practices into habits, and then eventually habits become a lifestyle. And that's an important thing for our young people to learn. So how do we do that? Well, there are some resources that we have collected and pulled together that we want to share with you. There is a framework or a set of documents that we have on our website that I think will be really helpful. If you go to elcaymnet.org and you then go to the 25 for 1 tab that's on the top of the page, 25 for 1 being the name of this project, there's a page that has resources there that can be helpful, articles and books and journals, and also resources from Practice Discipleship, which is an initiative of the network that went over 5 years and collected a whole bunch of resources together, and including resources on each of these 7 faith practices that we've been talking about. That would be a place that you can start. In addition, you can go to a page under that same tab called Ideas, and there's a whole set, I think over 30 at this point, different ideas that you can use in the upcoming year in your ministry. Some really practical things that you can just do that'll be helpful. Let me just share one with you. One thing that we've talked about is the possibility of framing our year around these 7 faith practices. So my word would be, quickly after the gathering, pull your group together. Like, don't wait more than 2 weeks because energy dissipates quickly. And do a reunion and do a gathering, get pizza or grill or something like that. And then have everybody bring their pictures, put them on a screen, tell stories, laugh, enjoy each other's company again. But then at some point in the conversation, ask the question, so what's next for us? What do we do with this experience? Maybe one of the things you'll do is together you're going to plan events for the congregation to share the story of the gathering, to share what you've learned, what you've experienced, to share the speakers, the music, all those kinds of things. Maybe you'll pull together some event that would be a good kickoff that would invite other people into the life of this group. And then maybe you frame the year. Maybe then October, we're going to pull together and meet, and we're going to talk about this first faith practice of encourage. And then maybe in November, we're going to talk about the faith practice of invite. And by the way, if you go back to that resources page, there's all sorts of material under that practice discipleship section. There is curriculum, and there's training videos, and there's all stuff that you can use to create these sessions that you'll do. Then maybe December you take off because it's Christmas time, but maybe because November was invite, December becomes the outcome. And you say, okay, in November, when you're talking about inviting, you say, okay, one of our goals, we want to double the size of our group for the Christmas party. So we're going to invite, because that's the spiritual practice that we're going to live into. And then January, you focus on welcome, and maybe February, focus on prayer. All these things, there's resources for you, and they're all free, and they're all on the website at elcaymnet.org, and then click on the 25 for 1 tab. There's lots of things there that you can make use of. Now, the ELCA Youth Ministry Network is the organization that does this. And we encourage you to become a part of the network and to work within that. Because we are a standalone organization from the network that provides lots of different kinds of resources, we don't receive funds from the ELCA except for some particular grant kinds of things. It's all funded by our members. So there is a cost, it's $85. During the gathering, we're offering a discount, but the standard price after the gathering is $85 to be a part of that. And we encourage you to join that and become a part of this community, over 1,200 people. And there's a third video that's going to be at the bottom of this page that'll give you more information about the life of the network if you want to learn more about what the network does and all these other resources that are available to you. But we really think it's important for you to join and be a part of a community of people that are working this stuff together and figuring out how God is calling young people into lives of faith.
We want to remind you that there are some other sessions that if you haven't attended, to check those out. And then I would just like to close us in a word of prayer, thanking God and thanking each other for being on this journey. Let's pray. Gracious God, thank you for these leaders. Bless them, fill their hearts with your love, empower them with the Holy Spirit so they may indeed encourage, accompany, and equip young people as they together discover what it is to live a Christian way of life. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.